I'm Leslie Liao in New York, where, in defiance of China, Taiwan's vice president just wrapped up the first of 2 highly sensitive U.S. transits.
I'm in Taipei at the so-called Comfort Women Museum to look at why Japan has not apologized for its wartime atrocities.
Taiwan and the Japanese island of Yonaguni look forward to a possible future ferry service. Plus, Taiwan marks Air Force Day. We look back on how the U.S. has impacted the service's history. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Philip Broussard. Taiwan's Vice President Ching-te is hours from landing in Paraguay after wrapping up a U.S. stopover that's been denounced by China. Leslie Liao brings us this report from New York.
When he arrived on Saturday, Lai was greeted by crowds of supporters, including some who said they were Chinese people who were against war.
我们都是从大陆来的，我们呢是流亡在美国的一些人，我们也是参加了反京中共的人士。我们要支持台湾呀，支持台湾的民主呀，台湾的一些自由啊，不能让中共给剥夺了去啊！不管是武力威胁呀，还是用各种什么渗透呀，各种方式啊，我们要在这里要表达我们的心声，要让台湾人坚持住，这样的话，世界人才能会支持他。
But his meeting with local Taiwanese residents the following day was met with demonstrations. Protesters accused Lai of disrupting peace and provoking war.
破坏了中美友好关系，这个跟我们全世界人都有关系。赖清德是一个想台独的一个分子，这个对我们的全美国、全中国、全世界的华人都会得到了这个不好的生活、不好的安宁。
Lai's visit comes at a sensitive time for U.S.-China relations. Washington has sent a flurry of high-level officials to Beijing in a bid to make sure military and economic disagreements don't spiral into conflict. Lai's visit will test that thaw in ties. China has already reacted angrily, saying it deplores and strongly condemns Lai's visit and accuses the U.S. of supporting independence for Taiwan, which China claims as its sovereign territory. After President Tsai Ing-wen met U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in a similar transit this year, China launched military drills simulating a blockade of Taiwan. The U.S. says Lai's visits are routine and common practice, and it's already urged China, officially known as the PRC, not to react with force.
There is no reason for the PRC to use this transit as a pretext for provocative action.
For Lai, this trip comes at a pivotal moment for his political ambitions. He's running for president in next year's elections, and he'll hope to use these stopovers as proof of his diplomatic credentials. But for now, a 2-day respite as Lai heads to Paraguay to represent Taiwan at the country's presidential inaugurations. But he'll be back on Wednesday for a 9-hour stopover, a stopover that could impact Taiwan-U.S.-China relations. Eason Sun and Leslie Liao in New York for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese chip giant TSMC saw its stock dip on Monday, briefly falling below the company's 6-month average. TSMC's stock price fell to as low as $16.81 US. This indicates a weakening financial performance for the world's largest contract chip maker. The dip resulted in the company's market value dropping almost $6.5 billion US. The company also anticipates its third quarter performance will be lower than in previous years. TSMC recently announced it would build its first foundry in Europe. That's on top of its ongoing multi-billion-dollar projects in Japan and the U.S. state of Arizona. Foxconn has reported a 1% drop in its second quarter net profits. Profits for the company that makes Apple's iPhone slipped by just over $9 million US from the same period last year. But this number was better than the average some analysts expected. Earlier this year, Foxconn predicted its revenue for 2023 would be flat. That's as the slow global economy is dampening demand for consumer electronics. Taiwanese authorities are stepping up efforts to combat the spread of revenge porn online. New regulations taking effect on Tuesday give victims the power to report sexual images hosted on websites without their permission. If the website doesn't remove the images within a given time, Taiwan's health ministry can fine the site more than $18,000. If necessary, authorities can also block access to the site. Ministry statistics from February to June show reports of revenge porn increased 5 times over the same period last year. Of these, most involved women aged 18 to 25, but people of any age can fall victim.
最大年龄74岁我们的一个阿嬷也是有这样性向的这个遭散布的威胁。
It's International Memorial Day for Comfort Women, a day to remember the women and girls forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese army during World War II. For decades, Taiwan has been calling on the Japanese government to recognize Taiwan's 2,000 comfort women. Bing Wang reports from the Ama Museum, a space dedicated to these women's lives and memory.
Remembering the 2,000 Taiwanese women enslaved for sex by the Japanese Imperial Army during World War II. This marks 32 years since the first so-called comfort woman came out with her story. In Taiwan, it's the first commemoration without a Taiwanese survivor. The memorial is taking place in this Taipei museum called Ama, which means grandmother in the local Taiwanese Hokkien language. It's a space dedicated to keeping memories of Taiwanese comfort women alive. The museum also serves as a place to promote gender equality and to highlight the trauma caused by sexual abuse.
这些前台籍慰安妇阿嬷们他们的历史资料跟他们的口述历史啊，跟他们等等的他们的生命经验，我们把它保存在这个馆内，然后希望让世人跟社会大众不要忘记这段历史。
Imperial Japan ruled Taiwan from 1895 until its defeat in World War II in 1945. During those 50 years, Japan governed Taiwan with an iron fist. The Japanese rulers exploited Taiwan's resources, brutally suppressed dissent, forced the population to use the Japanese language, and clamped down on personal freedoms.
The Japanese colonial period was certainly one that involved significant repression. There were a large number of revolts and insurrections against Japanese rule that were violently put down by the Japanese military.
During World War II, the Japanese army opened brothels in Taiwan. Women were forced to serve the soldiers during the day and raped during the night. The Japanese also had comfort women in the Philippines, South Korea, and China. In total, around 200,000 were enslaved in Japanese-occupied territories. In 2015, Japanese Prime Minister Abe Shinzo signed a historic agreement with South Korea offering $8.3 million in reparations. So far, only South Korea has received an official apology.
Some may say that it could because the Taiwan's special international status.
Japan's one-China policy means it only has diplomatic ties with Beijing and does not recognize Taiwan, which China claims as part of its own territory. This adds another layer of complication to historical matters. The last Taiwanese comfort woman died at the age of 92 in May 2023, but rights activists are still calling on the Japanese government to offer these women recognition and to offer families reparations. This museum aims to keep their memories alive, to offer a space for healing, and to teach younger generations about the trauma brought about by war and gender violence. Devin Tsai and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
The government is responding to claims that the number of undocumented foreigners in Taiwan has reached a record high of 115,000. That includes nearly 83,000 migrant workers reported missing by their employers. Louise Watt reports.
Police in Taoyuan City stopping an overloaded taxi, only to then discover that all 6 passengers were migrant workers from Vietnam reported missing by their employers. A few days earlier, 2 Thai nationals that authorities say were illegally employed by a Taiwan power company subcontractor died in a car crash while en route to a job site during a typhoon. It's incidents like these that are throwing attention on undocumented migrant workers in Taiwan. Most migrant workers come from Southeast Asia, and their status is tied to a single employer. They're not allowed to leave or change jobs, though many do, because of poor work conditions, disagreements with their employer, or in search of better wages. Migrant workers were temporarily barred from entering Taiwan during the pandemic, which made the labour shortage worse. But Taiwan's Ministry of Labour says that since borders reopened, fewer migrant workers have been reported missing, and their overall number has increased. From a total of 739,000 migrant workers, 16,700 were reported missing in the first half of 2023, down 4,400 from the same period in 2022. In that time, the rate fell from 3.14% to 2.28%. The Labour Ministry says that's partly because Taiwan has been cracking down on illegal employment and allowed visa overstayers to voluntarily depart. But observers say Taiwan is not getting to the root of the problem. Migrant workers come to Taiwan in search of a better life. With an aging population and a shrinking workforce, observers say Taiwan needs to have more flexible policies for people who want to live and work in the country. Alex Chen and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
The mayor of Hsinchu City has been indicted on corruption charges. Gao Hong'an of the Taiwan People's Party is accused of embezzling around $14,000 by falsely reporting her assistants' salaries. She's also accused of altering documents to cover up the crime. If found guilty, she could face 7 years in prison. Gao maintains she is innocent.
我想在侦查的一开始的时候，我想检察官就已经认定就是要起诉我贪污。今天得到这个贪污起诉的结果，其实真的一点都不意外。许多我身为被告有利的证据是基本上是完全的不管不顾。
Taiwan could get a direct ferry link to Japan, though not quite all the way to Tokyo. The tiny Japanese island of Yonaguni is so close that you can see it from Taiwan on a clear day. And after decades without a direct connection, it could soon be ready to welcome Taiwanese tourists. John Van Trieste has this report.
This is Yonaguni Island, Japan's westernmost outpost. Taiwan is just over 100 kilometers away. You can see it faintly on the horizon in good weather. Yonaguni and Taiwan once had close links, but it's been decades since boats stopped sailing between them. Now, though, talk of a ferry service is bringing back memories of a shared past. It began in 1895, when Taiwan became a Japanese colony. Many Yonaguni islanders started moving to Taiwan, seeking their fortunes. It was far closer than Japan's main islands and provided things like a higher education that they couldn't get at home. Huang Zhihui, an expert on Yonaguni at Taiwan's Academia Sinica, says many islanders' family trees have someone who made the crossing.
这个1945年，这个中战的时候呢，岛上的人口是4000多人。那这4000多人里面呢，至少有400多人是在台湾工作，啊，还不包括在台湾就学啊，其他的这个人口，或者是做家属啊，这个。 跟随到台湾去生活
Japan's rule on Taiwan ended after World War II. Japanese people, Yonaguni islanders among them, were sent home. With an international border now between Yonaguni and Taiwan, boat crossings soon stopped. But even cut off from each other, Taiwan was always in the islanders' consciousness, just on the horizon. From the 80s, Yonaguni became twinned with the city of Hualien on Taiwan's east coast. Groups of kids from the island visit each year for a homestay experience. Other links remain too. Yonaguni's head of tourism, Otake Nobuhumi, remembers watching Taiwanese TV as a kid. The signal from Taiwan carried Japanese cartoons, ironically cartoons that the only Japanese station at the time didn't have. Otake says Yonaguni has grown as a tourist destination, with its diving, rugged coast, clear skies, and relaxed island lifestyle all part of the attraction. And he says it's time to add more Taiwanese tourists to the mix.
ダイビングとか結構以前いらした方がいらっしゃったりして、最近は欧米の方々もちらほら見えるようになってきてるんで、そういう面ではもっと台湾の方々を通じてアピールできるのではないかとは思っています。
But getting to Yonaguni from Taiwan is a pain. The fastest route involves 3 separate flights, all to get to an island 2 hours away by boat, and close enough to pick up Taiwanese cell phone signals. Not many are willing to go through all that trouble. It's something officials on both sides want to change, both to boost tourism and cross-border friendship. That's why in July, the Speaker of Taiwan's legislature, Yu Xi-kun, took this boat to Yonaguni on what he hoped would be a test run for a regular ferry service. Even the islanders with the most to gain, though, say there's still a lot of work to do before the island is ready to welcome large numbers of tourists. Mai Kuroshima Megumi is a Chinese language teacher and translator who's one of the few locals to visit Taiwan regularly. First, she says, there's no immigration or customs checkpoints on the island. There are few places to stay either, mostly bed and breakfasts. And the present population of just over 1,000 isn't used to crowds.
実際定期船で来られてもやっぱ島が受け入れられないので、変な話、例えば島としても、例えば月に1回入島制限をしますよとか、そういったその最低限のルールは備えた方がいいかなって思います。来た時にやっぱりウィンウィンの方がいいじゃないですか、お互いに。
Still, Taiwan seems to be back on the islanders' radar. Mai Kuroshima says some are even learning Mandarin Chinese as spoken in Taiwan. It's not clear when these locals can expect to welcome boatloads of Taiwanese tourists, but when the ferry comes, Taiwan's backyard will get bigger, and old ties between 2 neighbors will be rekindled. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, we meet Taiwan's tiny watermelons, mini fruit you can eat in just a few bites. Stay tuned.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Wildfires on the Hawaiian island of Maui have become the deadliest in modern U.S. history, leaving at least 96 people dead and hundreds missing. Support has poured in from around the world as the community searches for survivors. Harrell Hughes reports.
This was the Hawaiian town of Lahaina before, and this is what's left of it now. Wildfire started on Maui about a week ago, and within days engulfed much of the western part of the island, including this historic town. The community has been devastated.
Really right now, it's been so hard, very hard. Never, I think in my life would I have imagined that we would have something like this, a catastrophe of an unequal disaster.
The blaze spread at an alarming rate and caught the community off guard. Now almost 1,000 people are still missing, and hundreds are left searching for their loved ones. Many residents and local businesses lost everything to the damage.
I lost my town, I lost my house. I mean, I'm not trying to be materialistic, but I mean, these are things I can't replace. It's not furniture and stuff like that. These are personal things, but plus I've lost friends, you know. There's people I still haven't seen.
In the spirit of the Hawaiian term ohana, which means family, support for Maui and its residents has been pouring in from around the globe.
Been trying to not cry this whole time. Been trying to be strong for everybody, you know, but I'm so hurt by everything that's happening.
But the outpouring of donations is like that tent is constantly sorting clothes and all kinds of necessities, and seems like we're all sticking together as Maui Ohana.
As the flames are mostly under control, the cause of the wildfire is under investigation. Some suspect failed power lines combined with drought conditions and worsening climate change are to blame. But for now, a main focus is on recovering survivors and reuniting families, and beginning the long path to recovery. Justin Wu and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
An appeals court in Hong Kong has partially overturned convictions for 7 of the city's leading pro-democracy figures. The 7 include former media mogul Jimmy Lai, veteran democracy activist Martin Lee, and 5 former pro-democracy lawmakers. They were convicted of organizing and taking part in an unauthorized rally in August 2019. At that time, some 1.7 million people took to the streets, calling for police accountability and democracy. On Monday, the court reversed the 7's conviction for organizing the protest, but upheld the conviction for taking part. The sentences in the case had already been served. Lai and 3 of the former lawmakers are still in custody, as they have also been charged under Hong Kong's national security law. Monday is Taiwan's Air Force Day. The country used to have the most powerful air force in all of East Asia. Ed Moon takes a look at its history and its long-standing relationship with the United States.
This is Ching-te Air Force Base in the central Taiwanese city of Taichung. It's being opened to the public for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic, a way for people to get up close with some of the military's most impressive equipment. It's also a special anniversary for the Air Force, marking one of its first military victories. But that didn't happen in Taiwan. In 1937, the Republic of China Air Force shot down 2 Japanese bombers over the Chinese city of Hangzhou. The bombers, it turns out, took off from what is now Songshan Airport in Taipei, in what was then Japanese-controlled Taiwan. Despite this victory, the ROC Air Force was largely outmatched by its Japanese opponents, who had more experience and better equipment. It wasn't until the US joined the war that the tide started to turn. A combined Chinese-American Air Force unit was formed under the command of US advisor Claire Lee Chennault.
And so the effort to do that, which started in 1943, was the Chinese-American Composite Wing. And that was an ingenious idea by Chennault to basically have a multinational wing with Americans and Chinese serving at every level of leadership.
Together, American and ROC pilots helped defeat the Japanese. Victory was soon followed by despair, though, for the ROC, as it went on to lose the Chinese Civil War to the Communists. The ROC government and military then retreated to Taiwan, which was now under ROC control after the Japanese surrender.
The Air Force on Taiwan was very demoralized. That was a rough go for them.
US support for the ROC on Taiwan didn't end there, though. In 1951, an advisory group known as the MAAG was established in Taipei to offer Taiwan defense assistance. From 1953 onwards, state-of-the-art jet aircraft were provided to Taiwan. With this assistance, the Air Force was able to hold off further attacks from China. Taiwan's F-86 jet pilots scored the world's first air-to-air kills with US-made Sidewinder missiles during the Second Taiwan Strait Crisis in 1958.
It worked fantastically, and it really offset a lot of the PLA strengths. And so it was really a validation of this whole process and a huge relief, and then served as a model to all these other air forces in the region.
Today, US assistance for the Air Force continues.
There's still a tradition of U.S. training and U.S. cooperation. A lot of them are flying U.S. F-16s, for example. So you still have pilots going to, now down to Tucson in Arizona to learn how to fly the F-16. Pilots now go to Arizona to learn how to fly combat aircraft, just like pilots went to Arizona during World War II to learn how to fly P-51s and B-25s.
The Air Force is now being tested like it hasn't been in years. China's People's Liberation Army regularly flies aircraft near Taiwan, forcing the military to scramble jets in response. That's led the US to step up its delivery of weapons and training to Taiwan, further underlining a partnership that's been decades in the making. Klein Wang, Sam Hui, and Ed Moon for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Air Force has issued an apology after a bomb dropped during a drill landed close to a Coast Guard vessel. The incident happened last Wednesday in waters off the country's southern coast. An F-16 fighter jet taking off from Jiayi Air Force Base was practicing bombing runs and dropped a bomb that exploded near the Coast Guard ship. At the time, the vessel was over 40 kilometers away from the drill's intended target area. The Air Force admitted to the incident after a Taipei city councilor revealed it to the public on Monday.
为了命中目标且距离目标区过远，造成震波影响海巡舰艇引擎，本军深表歉意。
A farmer in southern Taiwan has grown watermelons that can be eaten in just a few bites. John Van Trieste reports on what people are making of these miniature melons.
Ripe and hanging on the vine is farmer Huang Zhihui's new creation, and it's just in time for summer. It's a tiny watermelon he's calling a mini ball. Weighing around 600 grams on average, one melon is the size of a baseball, and just 1/30th the size of the giant watermelons sold in supermarkets. The choice to think small was a deliberate one.
单身或是夫妻俩，那这样的分量是蛮适合他们小送人口去食用的，不用这样买到外面的那么大颗鸡块，然后买了切了还要放在冰箱要冰很久，这可能一次就可以把它吃完。
You can even eat the rind. These bite-sized melons have already become a hit with those who've tried them.
这果肉看起来很红哎，感觉甚至比那种大西瓜还要红。
But for now, you won't find mini balls in many places outside Huang's farm in Jiayi County. Though they ripen in just 50 days, they attract more pests than regular watermelons. That means they need extra care, with a higher price as a result. So while the fruit is still at an experimental stage, Huang hopes it won't be too long before the fruit-loving public are lining up to sample his mini balls. Justin Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, today we leave you with images of CloudGate's theater building in Danshui, New Taipei. I'm Philip Broussard. Take care and see you next time.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus. Be sure to follow us on social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world.